Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Catholic Citizen, where week in, week out, we share the news with you from a biased Catholic perspective, a really incredibly biased perspective. That's mine. But it's great to have you here. I love doing this show. I love having you with me. And in just a second, we're going to have some fun. Do you get excited on Friday mornings knowing that we get to be together? I do. I wake up and I'm like, I can't wait to see you because you are unique, irrepeatable. You can't be replaced by anybody. And that's what I was telling the pro-choice protesters that are out there the other night who are protesting our prayer vigil for life. The 40 Days for Life campaign has begun, 40daysforlife.com. Wherever you're at in the state or the country, you can join in a 40 Days for Life campaign. But we're trying to close down our last remaining abortion facility here in Toledo because of the madness that's happening all around the country. I wasn't even going to cover this story today, but just real quick, before we get to our sponsors and everything of that nature, right now in Congress, you wouldn't believe this, the Democrats are trying to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. Look, let me just say this. If we're going to continue to elect progressives, liberals, and or really people in the Democratic Party. And look, all people are welcome to watch the show. I don't think all Democrats are bad people. I don't. But the leaders of the party have made it very clear where they stand concerning the most preeminent issue of life. So they're attempting to pass right now in Congress the Women's Health Protection Act, which says this. It will destroy all state pro-life laws. It'll codify Roe v. Wade across the country, making abortion the law of the land. This is what your members of Congress are doing right now. It's going to throw out any laws that the Supreme Court has previously upheld. It'll eliminate state protections such as, for children with Down syndrome. It'll make you, if you're a doctor, you're going to have to participate in abortions. If you're a Catholic hospital, you're going to have to provide abortions. This is the madness, the craziness that we're getting out of our nation's capital from the Democratic Party. I'm sorry, I just got to say it. All right, let's get to our sponsors. First and foremost, thank you so much, Casa Bay Cleaning. We love you. Thank you for keeping this show clean. I come into this office and it's super clean. It's super clean because of the people at Casa Bay Cleaning. They're so good, they don't even have to go somewhere to make it clean. Casa Bay Cleaning today, please, whether it's your home, whether it's your office, Casa Bay Cleaning is the company you want to call, not only because they're really good at what they do, but they're really good people. And we like them. We love them at Casa Bay Cleaning. So please, patron Casa Bay. Secondly, we cannot keep the lights on, like literally. We're going to run out. We have some tremendous donors who have enabled us to stay on air this long. But if you can just give $3 a month, $3 a month, maybe $10, maybe a one-time gift of $150, whatever it is, check us out at thecatholiccitizen.com. You can watch any of the previous shows, and you can share these shows with your friends, your loved ones, your neighbors. And so just say, hey, just watch this guy. You may not like him, but just listen to some of the points that he has, because what I've been trying to articulate to you, this guy articulates it pretty well. And so maybe just check it out. thecatholiccitizen.com. We need your help. Please become a patron supporter today. All right, on today's show. Unintended consequences of COVID-19. Now, again, number one, taking COVID-19, the coronavirus, serious from the beginning. It's taken me literally a year and a half to be able to pronounce that. But we take the coronavirus seriously. Always have, always will. It's a serious illness. I think it came from a lab in China. I think the evidence is becoming pretty clear that it came from a lab in China that we've actually been funding. So it's a unique illness, an illness that we didn't know much about because it's actually not a natural illness. It's something that we created. With that being said, I think some of the drastic measures that we took as a country to try to control something that wasn't going to be controlled, it was absolutely insane. And the impacts that had on the general populace then have been devastating, from our economy to our psychological health to our kids. Just a report came out the other day, a paper circulated by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, looking at the mass body index of kids. 4,300,000 children increased their mass body index between March and November of 2020, nearly double the rate that it did before the pandemic began. We already have a problem with obesity in this country, and it just doubled, folks, with our kids because of the pandemic, and we closed schools and we said, kids, stay at home and sit on your couch. Dietitian Michelle Hayes, the director of the clinical weight loss program at Baltimore's Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, called the trends, quote, staggering. Staggering, because we know one of the things that we have to do to fight COVID-19 is we got to stay healthy. We got to exercise. We got to take our vitamins. And so now that we have the variants that are more susceptible to our children, we have kids that are not healthy, ready to take on the virus. All right, let me make a quick note here on vaccine. This is why I posted yesterday that I think this show is going to be really important. The church, and I'm a son of the church, has been saying from the Holy Pontiff and the CDF all the way down to our local bishop, have been promoting and saying that the vaccine is morally licit to take. I'm a son of the church, and that is the position that I will take as well. It is morally licit to take the vaccine. In fact, the church has said it can be an act of charity to do so. However, let me just say this. This has not been emphasized at all, so I want to emphasize it because if you take the vaccine, you're following church teaching. If you don't take the vaccine, though, you're also following church teaching if your conscience is well-formed, something that has not been emphasized or talked about. So if you are someone who's decided not to take the vaccine because maybe it's connection to the aborted fetal cell line, that while it's remote and it's remote material cooperation, you still feel very uncomfortable with that, or there's just some reality about you have concerns about the therapeutic qualities of this vaccine and the risks you might be taking, let me read to you from some really smart people at the National Catholic Bioethics Center. Okay, this is what they have said. Now, if I am wrong in any of this, I am welcome to be corrected, whether that is by our church authorities here locally, whether it's by the Holy Pontiff himself. But I don't think any of this goes outside of the realm of church teaching. So all those people have been contacting my office saying, I don't want to take this. I don't believe in abortion, and I don't like that this has any connection whatsoever to do with an abortion. That some of these vaccines have been tested on lines from the HEK 2093 cell line. And some people will say, well, it's just a cell line. Look, it took 293 abortions to get to that cell line. It's not just that one child that was aborted. Nonetheless, with that being said, this is what the NCBC says. While the Catholic Church does not prohibit the use of any vaccine and generally encourages the use of safe and effective vaccines as a way of safeguarding personal public health, the following authoritative church teachings demonstrate the principled religious basis on which a Catholic may determine that he or she ought to refuse certain vaccines. All right, first paragraph, again here. The church actually encourages safe and effective vaccines. Now, the CDF and some of their documents have said, we're not going to rule on the efficacy of the current COVID-19 vaccines. Fair enough. But they seem to be following the general science that it's safe and effective. So that's one of the reasons they've said it's okay to get it. But again, a Catholic, just because the church is currently encouraging one certain vaccine, it doesn't eliminate the rest of church history when it comes to its teachings on vaccines. And this is what the church has taught. A vaccination is not morally obligatory in principle, and so must be voluntary. That's from the CDF, the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith. Let me repeat that. A vaccine is not morally obligatory in principle, and so must be voluntary. Talking about any vaccine here, folks. Number 2, there is a general moral duty to refuse the use of medical products, including certain vaccines, that are produced using human cell lines derived from direct abortions. It is permissible to use such vaccines only under certain case-specific conditions based on a judgment of conscience. As from the Pontifical Academy for Life, 2005. That's a church teaching. There's a general moral duty to refuse the use of medical products, including certain vaccines, that are produced using human cell lines derived from direct abortions. This is the teaching of the church. It doesn't mean that what we've heard from the currently Holy Pontiff isn't the teaching of the church, that they've encouraged us as an act of charity to get it because they think it reaches the level of case-specific condition where it's okay to take the vaccine even though it's connection to the aborted fetal cell line. Doesn't change that. Both are true at the same time. It's just you haven't heard one at all. You haven't heard this one over here. You've heard the other one, but you haven't heard this one. So that's what I'm just telling you, this one over here. Number 3, A person's informed judgments about the proportionality of medical interventions are to be respected unless they contradict authoritative Catholic moral teachings. That's from the USCCB. So if someone says, look, there's a lot of risks that come with the vaccine. It's newly produced and everything. We're just not quite sure that this is worth taking. I already had COVID myself. Natural immunity is the best thing that you can have. I don't want to necessarily take the shot because of the new mRNA vaccine. Those are legitimate things. None of that contradicts authoritative Catholic moral teaching. Number 4, a person is morally required to obey his or her conscience, even if it errs. That's the Catechism of the Catholic Church. So the NCBC document finishes as this: a Catholic may judge it wrong to receive certain vaccines for a variety of reasons consistent with these teachings, and there is no authoritative church teaching universally obliging Catholics to receive any vaccine. An individual Catholic may invoke church teaching and refuse a vaccine developed or produced using aborted-derived cell lines. Okay? I think it's really important for you to hear that because we haven't heard that. So I'm telling it to you. So now you can't say you never heard it. All right, number 3. Folks, when you hear a story or when you hear the mainstream media shoot down a story, just wait, and think about the larger context of maybe what is going on in this particular circumstance. So we've seen it with COVID-19. The fact that when it was leaked that, hey, maybe we were funding research in the Wuhan lab, but every major newspaper came out and said that it's a fringe theory. Every major network was saying, oh, those crazy conservative people are telling us it came from a lab when we know it came from a wet market. And then suddenly a year later, after the election, we find out, oh, yeah, it actually probably came from a lab that we are funding. Just wait when you hear stories in the media today, such as the Hunter Biden story. We were told that this was a Russian misinformation hoax because they didn't want this to affect Joe Biden. So the major networks barely even covered this, barely even a peep that the vice president's son at the time, then Vice President Joe Biden, was working with his allies in Russia and Ukraine and getting emails and setting up deals, taking advantage of the fact that his father was vice president. But we are told this is just Russian misinformation. It's helping the Trump campaign. You can't pay attention to it. And look, again, I'm not the hugest Trump fan. I'm just saying I just want unbiased media coverage. Well, CNN's top brass admitted they were spiking the scandal as it unfolded. Leaked audio had showed, and now Politico has come out with a story and confirms that independent access to Hunter Biden's emails confirmed he did receive a 2015 email from a Ukrainian businessman thanking him for the chance to meet Joe Biden. Oh, thank you so much for letting me see the vice president, the second most powerful man in the world. Thanks for setting that up with me. Oh, and he got emails from Chinese energy executives, including lines that said, hey, make sure you hold 10 by H for the big guy. Emails released by a Swedish government agency also match emails in the leak cache. And 2 people who corresponded with Hunter Biden confirmed emails from the cache were genuine. Ha, interesting. But, well, election's over. It doesn't really matter at this point, right? I'm sure he's not in any way, shape, or form using the fact that his father's now the president of the United States for any deals or anything of that nature. Number 4, unbelievable. So many people voted for Joe Biden because they said, yeah, okay. The abortion issue, they tried to downplay the abortion issue. They said, well, it's one issue among many. He's good on the other issues, right? He's pro-life on the other issues, Yeah, so we have leaked transcripts of him. It's not leaked. It was actually in the papers about him and his comments about the people of Afghanistan well before he was the most powerful man in the world, talking about, well, it really doesn't matter what happens to them in that country. And we've seen that kind of play out the way his administration ran the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Then we also have leaked information that progressives are going nuts about this, right? Because of the way that the perceived treatment of things that are happening at the border right now. 1994 interview he gave with PBS when he was then senator of Delaware, when he was talking about the country of Haiti, whether or not we should go intervene because there's a military coup there. He said, quote, if Haiti, a god-awful thing to say, but if Haiti just quietly sunk into the Caribbean or rose up 300 feet, it wouldn't really matter a whole lot in terms of our interest. Okay, that was Joe Biden talking about the Haitian people back in 1994. So you have the current crisis on the border right now. where at its height, 15,000 immigrants crossed the Rio Grande, and they were living underneath a bridge. In these makeshift stick plants, whatever they could find, type built shelter. Now, people are rushing into the country because the Biden administration reversed a Trump-era policy to say you can't seek asylum and be in the United States of America. You can seek asylum from another country. That's fine. But you're not going to come across the border illegally and then seek asylum and then be released, as all these immigrants right now are being released. Meanwhile, they're not being tested for COVID. Okay. Meanwhile, they're not, background checks, all those things. Now, look, a couple quick points about the situation. Now, they're starting to clear the area. It's down to 3,000 people at this moment. But first point, if your heart doesn't hurt and break for those immigrants who are coming across the border, who are living in shanty towns underneath bridges, you have no heart. Look, the conditions are so bad in their home countries that they're seeking better life. And if we can't have sympathy for that, compassion for that, if we can't recognize their human dignity, you have to take a deep breath and check if you still have a heart, because, my God, I've been in some of these countries. I've seen the mud cakes that the Port-au-Prince kids eat out of Haiti. It's incredibly rough conditions. Number two, though, on the other hand, if you think each one of those immigrants are simply nice people and the U.S. shouldn't be enforcing our immigration laws, you've lost your mind. Look, we've seen in the case of two U.S. congressmen who have indeed lost their mind. They look at the clips of the Border Patrol agents, okay? They're on horses and they're trying to corral the people, trying to keep them from coming in the country. And it's very easy to look at that and say, oh my gosh, these people, they're whipping people, they're on horses, how dare they do that? I mean, would you prefer them running over people in cars? They're trying to enforce the border, okay? Now, I may have issues with certain tactics they might be using, but try being a Border Patrol agent for a day. It's a very, very difficult, challenging job. You're trying to keep people from out of the country. But Maxine Waters, who was looking at this, Ayanna Pressley said that this was in Del Rio a white supremacist behavior. Maxine Waters said that this was, quote, what we witnessed was worse than what we witnessed in slavery. Cowboys with their reins, again, whipping black people, Haitians in the water, where they're scrambling and falling down when all they're trying to do is escape from violence in their country. Number one, just a little geography here, folks. Haiti, the country, is not right next to Texas. Those Haitians that are coming across the border did not come directly from Haiti. They haven't been in Haiti for many years. They're coming across the border over in Texas because they've been living in a different country for many years. And the country, the United States of America, has changed its immigration laws, and now they're rushing across the border to take advantage of that reality. So that's number one. Number two, the Haitians that are now in Texas, I have no doubt there's some incredibly amazing Haitians that are there. I love the Haitian people. Again, I've been to Haiti twice. Amazing, tremendous people. But newsflash for you, just like here in the United States of America, there are good people and there are bad people. In Haiti, there are good people and there are bad people. And some of the Haitians who have come across the country, not only when some of them were taken back did they throw things at the ICE agents and injure some of them, but the Haitians that are here, they were put in buses to be taken to detention centers, and they hijacked the buses. They threw off the drivers, and they escaped. So the Haitians that have come across the border have hijacked multiple buses. They've been basically overpowering the drivers, and they've actually hijacked a couple of buses and driven them down the road a little ways and escaped. This has happened multiple times. A senior federal law enforcement official told the Washington Examiner on Tuesday evening. Again, Haitians, lots of good people and some bad people. And some of those bad people are hijacking the buses we're putting them on, putting those buses in danger, and then running off into the country. All right. I can't remember who said it, but Maxine Waters, not a peep when we drone kids in Afghanistan. When the administration kills 10 people in Afghanistan, says that we killed the ISIS-K leaders, not a peep about that. But you have Border Patrol agents and they're on horses. My God, they're on horses. And suddenly it's white supremacy all over again. All right, number 5, what is allowed and not allowed in our schools? A mother from Leander, Texas. How are we doing on time? I'm going too long. I'm sorry. They're just, it's just so frustrating. All right, but stay with me. I'm going to end with some hope here, okay? So stay with me. Number 5. A mother from Leander, Texas, addressed the Leander School Board this month, expressing her outrage about a book that contains sexually explicit matter that her high school son was reading for class. What was some of the things that was being read? If you have children in the womb, I want you to be aware. I'm going to read something. Actually, I won't read it. I'll just kind of reference it here, but it's sexually explicit. So what was her son reading? A book that used words repeatedly like F-U-C-K and D-I-C-K and talked about the young man's experience playing around with another young man's private parts and talking about, how they sucked each other's D-I-C-K over and over again. And it was just fun. It was just playful. So that was the book that was assigned to his son's class. Meanwhile, if you're Brian Hickman and you're a 5th grader and you want to sing a song about Jesus in a talent show, nope, can't. The principal told you, absolutely not, because the Christian song We Shine has too many mentions of Jesus. So in our schools, we're saying, if we're talking about 2 boys sucking each other and their private parts, that's okay. That's fine. But my God, if you come up and try in a talent show to mention the word of Jesus, absolutely not. Brian's mother had to sue the school so that his son could sing about Jesus at the talent show. Brian actually has cerebral palsy. When he finally was allowed, because his mother, the elementary school, reversed the decision after being told, look, this isn't a matter of separation of church and state. He got a standing ovation from his classmates. So we praise God for that. But it's mind-boggling, folks, what is being allowed in our schools and what is not. So if you have a kid in public schools, you have to be hyper-aware, First of all, I would say get them heck out of there. But number 2, if you have to send them to public school, you need to be hyper-involved and hyper-aware of every grade level, what your kids are being taught and what they're being exposed to in school. Even if they're in Catholic school, you need to be hyper-aware. You need to be, those helicopter parents that are saying, that's a bad thing. Today, that's a really, really good thing. That's a really good thing. Because you have these individuals in schools who are looking to push an agenda on our kids that's attempting to change their whole worldview and understanding of sexuality. That's attempting to convince them that, you can be a boy even if you're a girl, or you can be a girl if you're a boy, telling you that that's okay. I mean, it's child abuse, what we're doing to our kids in schools nowadays. Nonetheless, next story, number 6. Where is our focus? So, one of the reasons that I've struggled with this whole COVID-19 thing is because of what our leaders tell us to do, and then they turn around and they do something completely different. The San Francisco mayor who imposes a mask mandate, and then she goes out and she's at a party and, the mask comes off. Or, President Barack Obama, who holds a special party for the elite and, there's nobody wearing masks. Or, whether it's Dr. Anthony Fauci at a baseball game and, he's not wearing a mask, even though he's told the entire country to do so. All those things kind of bother me a little bit, including at the Emmys. These wealthy elite who lecture us about X, Y, or Z when it comes to health, or AOC who's there, and then none of them wear masks. And the LA County Health Officer explains that exemptions are made for film, television, and music productions. And so exemptions were made for these wealthy celebrities. Meanwhile, kids in schools like kindergartners are forced to stare at walls as they eat their lunch. Makes me a little upset. And I just don't think that we are taking other things maybe as seriously as we should when it comes to the epidemics and pandemics we're facing as a nation. So there has been more children, just one small example. There has been more children who have been fatally shot in Chicago alone than have died of COVID-19 in the entire state of Illinois. Let me repeat that. There has been more children who have been fatally shot in Chicago, more kids shot by guns in Chicago than have died in the entire state of Illinois. But there is a mass crisis to make sure those kids are wearing masks, to make sure that those kids get vaccinated, to make sure that they're socially distancing. Maybe if we spent just a tenth of the energy on stopping kids from being shot, we would address the real epidemic in the city of Chicago. Oh, so what do we do? Some people have been asked, what do we do? Yeah, I don't know why they're coming to me, but what do we do? Number one, folks, we continue to pray. It always starts there. We can't dismiss that. That is the first, the middle, and the last step, because the power of God is absolutely incredible. Number two, if you're living here in the state of Ohio or whatever state you might be living in, contact your local representative, your state representative. Your state has still a lot of power. That's the way our founders set it up. The state governments are going to have power. They still do. Contact your state representative. Tell them how you feel. Do it in love. Do it in charity. But tell them what they need to be doing. They need to be protecting our rights when it comes to these vaccine mandates. Okay? They need to be protecting our rights when it comes to all the other health mandates that are out there. Okay? So that's number one. Contact your local representative. They work for you. So make them work for you. Give them a call. Okay? Number two, contact your bishop. Write them a kind letter. Contact your local pastor. Write them a kind letter. Tell them how you feel. Show them statistically. Sign up to the Catholic Citizen. Get all my notes. Share my notes with them. Share my videos with them. Okay? Do it in love. Do it in charity. They're human just like us. Okay? Just because someone has a different view than you doesn't mean they're not human. It doesn't make them the bad guy because they made a wrong decision or what you perceive to be a wrong decision. I'm not a bad guy because you disagree with me maybe on a point or two. Look, we got to come together and we got to talk about these things. But we can't just sit back and yell into the TV camera or yell to our friends who just think like us. We need to engage with others. So do that in love. Look, when a recent decision was made in our diocese I didn't like, I reached out to two individuals who were kind of behind the decision. Had a great conversation with them. It's great. We're still not on the same page necessarily, but we've become a little bit more on the same page. That's what it's all about. With no communication, there can't be no communion. Number three, commit to praying a daily rosary. Now, I know some of you aren't Catholic watching this, but I tell you what, the other night we had Pastor Timothy Clark from the Harvest Christian Center come out. Wonderful, wonderful, powerful sermon, homily right there on the sidewalk of Capital Care, our Toledo abortion facility. It was awesome. But whether I was speaking or Veronica LaGuire was singing or Pastor Tim was speaking, we had those hecklers with their bells and they're yelling at us and they're calling me a predator and all these different things. But they didn't stop until we started to pray the rosary. Invoking our Blessed Mother. Look, if you have Jesus, you've got all you need. But if Jesus has you, he wants to introduce you to the family, including his Blessed Mother. And he decides, for some mysterious, amazing way, he has done this from the beginning, to work his grace and his love through others. Yes, he works immediately sometimes, but think about, do you pray over other people? If you're of a Protestant sect, do you pray over people? Well, why do you do that? Why can't you just sit back and just say, all right, Jesus, heal this person? Why do you even have to say, Jesus, heal this person? Why do you call your mom when you need prayers and say, Mom, will you please pray? Because we believe in the power of intercession. So all we're doing as Catholics, we're just calling our Heavenly Mother, saying, Mama, would you pray for this? We're not praying to her. We're praying for her to intercede for us because she is sitting before the throne of grace. She's at the right hand of Jesus, the King. That's where the Queen Mother sat in the Old Testament. Okay? It's a continuation of belief that Jesus, he chose 12 apostles because there was 12 Davidic tribes in the Old Testament. So we got 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles. See, it's a continuation. There's the King and the Queen Mother. Today we have Jesus, he's a king, and we got a Queen Mother. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. You should be Catholic. Anyway, pray the rosary. As soon as we pray the rosary, those hecklers, those evil spirits tormenting us, gone. They left. They went to the other side of the street. Blessed Mother, I'm telling you, if you're not praying a daily rosary, commit to it today. Number 4, final part of the show. Get together with like-minded people and talk about these things. What do? We want to follow the law, but how do we live following the spirit of the law as well? So I'm not telling you to disobey laws, although sometimes civil disobedience has a place, but just out of a school board in Tennessee. This is great. I love this. This is where it's at, folks. This is what we do. A school board in Tennessee told teachers and coaches that they could no longer lead students in prayer. Members of the football team and their parents, then what they do? They took matters into their own hands. They said, all right, coaches, you can't lead in prayer after the school game, although this is going to be, I think it's going to be ruled unconstitutional, but fine. Public employee, not allowed to lead his football coach or team in prayer. Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, one father, Dustin Whitefield, he said he understands it's public school and post-game prayers should not be a problem, or what he said should not be a problem. But it's always been optional for players, he said, and they should be able to continue. But he said after the game, players and cheerleaders that choose to then are going to be on the field to pray on their own. So as a parent, he said, all right, let's go. Let's do it. We're parents. We can go out there. We pay public taxes. We can go out there and pray. And people want to come out and pray. They can do that. If they don't want to, they don't have to. Well, whole bunch of people came out in this parent-led event. Students, cheerleaders, parents. The community came out. And more people were out there praying than ever was before. So that's what we do, folks. We don't disobey. We just kind of go around. And we do what we've been called to do. We be Christian. We be Catholic. We pray. We respect, but we also challenge the governing authorities. And when they impose a law on us, which is unjust, we simply ask them, where does law come from at the end of the day? How do we know what is good and true, right and wrong? Where do you get your foundation for a belief? Friends, our foundation for belief comes from a God, a loving God who handed us the Holy Scriptures, a loving God who handed us the Word of life, Jesus Christ. So despite all the madness happening in the world today, if we come together, we pray. We come together, we contact our representatives, we contact and we pray with our local church leaders. And we come together with like-minded people and we talk about how should we address these things that are happening at a local basis. We'll be able to renew this country, and God willing, we'll have a revival in this nation, which will bring the nation back to God. Will you join me in that revival? Because my friends, it has begun. We'll see you next week on The Catholic Citizen.